I never expected the dishwasher to turn the tables on the millionaire chefs. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, hands trembling, heart racing, in the pristine kitchen of the highest-rated restaurant in town. The bright lights glared down, illuminating a scene that seemed perfect only. Beneath that shiny surface, chaos churned. The air crackled with tension. I watched, helpless, as Chef Marco tossed his apron to the floor, the fabric falling like a defeated soldier. His face, usually so confident, was twisted in disbelief. "It can't be broken," he shouted, slicing through the crowded room, provoking hushed whispers. I felt the heat radiate from him, the anger wrapping around us, squeezing tighter each second. Behind him, the brand-new dishwasher purchased just a week ago gurgled menacingly. Yes, you heard that right. A seemingly innocent appliance become a villain. The same dishwasher that promised efficiency now stood as a symbol of embarrassment. I could see the steam rising, hear that ominous rumble. Would it transform his carefully crafted dishes into a watery grave? As the millionaire chefs surrounded Marco, their faces were a mix of pity and disbelief. I felt the weight of their gazes on me. I was just a humble kitchen assistant, but this was my moment too. Could I be the one to save the day? The stakes rose as Marco turned to me, desperation consuming his voice. "Get it fixed. Now." I rushed over, as if compelled by an unseen force. My hand shook as I opened the door, and an unexpected cloud of suds erupted, splattering my face. Laughter erupted around the room, but it felt different, like shadows casting doubt on Marco's talent. The bubbles poured out like a bad omen. I glanced at the other chefs, frozen in their laughter, eyes wide with disbelief. What if this was the end for Marco? What if the restaurant couldn't recover? How could a dishwasher wreak such havoc? I was determined to find out what lay inside. Was it sabotage? Someone had to know. Then it hit me. An idea, wild and electrifying. I had to dig deeper. I needed to solve the puzzle. Just as I was about to reach for a wrench, a sudden silence cloaked the room. I turned around. There, standing in the doorway, was a stranger. A man clad in a sleek black suit. His presence was an unexpected chill amid the heat. Did he know something? I could feel every heartbeat in the room. Shadows dancing across the walls, synchronicity hanging in the air. All eyes were on him. And yet, there was one unshakable reality. They were all too focused on Marco and the broken dishwasher. The kitchen was not safe anymore. Secrets lurked in the steam. Whatever was happening was bigger than just a malfunction. "Who are you?" I whispered, the lump in my throat tightening. "Someone who knows the truth about that dishwasher," he said, his voice smooth yet foreboding. And just like that, I realized the future was about to shift. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The stranger stepped inside, as if the air shifted with him, heavy with anticipation. I could barely breathe, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief. Who was he, and what could he possibly know about a mere appliance? With my heart pounding in my chest, I was on the edge of something I couldn't quite grasp. "What do you mean?" Marco's voice cracked, desperate to regain control. "What truth could there possibly be?" "Perhaps you should start thinking beyond your kitchen," the stranger replied, a hint of a smirk creeping onto his lips. "Or should I say, look beneath it?" My instincts kicked in. This was no ordinary day in the kitchen. Something was brewing beneath the surface, and the tension crackled thicker than the soapy suds still bubbling on the floor. I moved closer, curiosity edging out my fear, hoping to catch even a whisper of what the stranger had to reveal. The collective energy morphed into a charged mixture of anxiety and anger. The other chefs resumed their huddles, whispering about what this meant for their careers. Marco's dreams were at stake. My dreams were at stake. I wanted to shout at them all to pay attention, to acknowledge the seriousness of the whirlwind swirling around us. "Look, Chef Marco," the stranger began, "I can save your restaurant, but it will come at a cost." He leaned casually against the prep table, eyes darting, measuring the reactions around him like a seasoned poker player eager to flaunt his cards. "What do you want?" Marco demanded, anger and fear lacing his every word. "Just a few moments of your time to room with reality." The man gestured nonchalantly toward the dishwasher, now a bubbling, mouthy presence of its own. "That machine has been tampered with. It was built with more than just plates in mind. Its purpose was designed to ruin careers, not just clean them dish by dish." Mac, a colleague, whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. "This isn't some conspiracy theory, is it? Surely it can't be." But my mind lingered, pondering his assertion with dread. What if he was right? A cold coil of suspicion twisted in my gut. Was this sabotage? Were the lines being drawn in the culinary world, and I was unwittingly caught in a high-stakes game? "Enough of this madness," Marco spat, fists clenching at his side. "You're trying to distract me. This isn't even possible." "Possible? Or not possible?" the stranger mused, his voice an eerie melody that hung around us, thick and oppressive. "I assure you there are those who would enjoy seeing you fall. They would revel in the chaos tearing apart your kitchen. You think the world of fine dining is as simple as sautéed onions and fresh herbs?" For a moment Marco faltered, the weight of vulnerability slipping into his eyes. I could see a flicker of doubt, but then a deep breath followed by a hard, unwavering stare returned to his face. He would seize this opportunity if only to reclaim what was his. "Are you really ready to lose everything?" the stranger pressed. There was an unsettling calmness in his demeanor, a predatory glint that unnerved me. "I can help you expose the true villain, but you will need to trust me. I promise you nothing." The world turned hazy. I knew my own role. The dishwasher debacle had unveiled so much more than most might grasp. No one had a hand in this but me. I couldn't let Marco go down without a fight. But what was I prepared to lose in the process? Just then the dishwasher jolted, sending a sudden spray of water towards us, shocking everyone into silence once again. The rhythmic hum of machinery fell eerily still. "Marco?" I dared to call out, moving cautiously towards the appliance. "We might want to see what's happening here." A low, grating noise emanated from within. Sensing we had no time to waste, I grabbed the nearest towel to wipe away the sudsy mess. As I crouched, something strange caught my eye, a hastily discarded piece of paper wedged into the crevice beneath the dishwasher. That was no ordinary repair bill. My heart raced as I reached for it, sensing an unexpected weight in my hand. I glanced back at Marco where I'd left him, locked in a debate with a stranger, oblivious to the unraveling truth right before us. "Are you really ready to lose everything?" echoed in my mind, taunting me. I could open this door and potentially expose the hidden scheming behind the kitchen's shimmering facade, risking everything in return. But the truth I held onto felt heavy, as if it was too hot to handle. As I unfolded the paper, my fate and perhaps the fates of many hung in the balance. The gripping silence fell around me, eyes now on my every move, as my heart thundered in my ears. What would I find? Could this unravel even more than a dishwasher's broken heart? Time stilled. My fingers trembled as I revealed the paper, but the chilling realization was already dawning on me. Was I the next pawn in a game I barely understood? The truth was just a thread away, and it was about to shatter everything we thought we knew. The paper unfurled in my hands, and the words danced before my eyes, their letters bold and menacing. The smudges of ink revealed an elaborate plan, clear enough that I could almost hear the conspirators laughing in the shadows. A series of cryptic notes and a list of locations flooded my mind with dread. These were clandestine meetings hidden beneath the guise of culinary events, places where rivals plotted in the dark, pulling strings to ruin those they deemed a threat. "Hey!" Marco's voice broke through my daze, panic rising as he noticed the expression on my face. "What's going on? What did you find?" I hesitated, torn between instinct and reason. The stranger watched me with an unsettling intensity, the smirk still curled on his lips, although a flicker of intrigue sparked in his eyes. In that moment I understood the power I held could either be our salvation or our doom. "Ithery something," I stammered, but my voice faltered under the weight of the implications. What if this very truth drove a wedge deeper between Marco and me? What if it tore the fragile thread of trust apart? "Show me," Marco urged, the edge in his voice sharpening. "We don't have time." With one last glance at the stranger, I took a deep breath and handed the paper to Marco. When he read it, the color drained from his face. His expression faltered, a cacophony of rage and confusion brewing behind his eyes as he grappled with the revelation. This was bigger than just his restaurant. It was about sinister forces at play, plotting behind the scenes. Who would do this? He breathed, more to himself than anyone. How could they? The stranger stepped in closer, his demeanor strangely comforting, offering an ominous yet gentle suggestion. Everyone has a motive, Marco. But you can't focus on what's happened. You need to think ahead. Who are your allies? Who can help navigate this treacherous labyrinth? Marco took a step back, voice firm. I won't play your games. We never asked for any of this. The defiance in his tone was palpable, but I could see the cracks forming. Beneath that bravado was a chef unraveling. Maybe you should have, the stranger replied softly, but the past can't be changed. If all you do is focus on it, you may miss the chance to shift everything. Sometimes it takes a catastrophe to reveal the most loyal among us. I watched as Marco squinted, eyes narrowing. He was contemplating his next move, piecing together the pieces of the dark puzzle that surrounded us. Yet, in that moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that the stranger drew delicate threads of conspiracy around Marco like a web, slowly tightening as time pulled him deeper into its ruthless grasp. An unexpected clattering sound broke the fragile tension, serving as a reminder that life hadn't paused for our revelations. One of my coworkers hastily dropped a stack of plates, the shattering echoes reverberating through the room, a cacophony that mirrored the chaos budding beneath our surface. That a sense of urgency fueled by fear ignited within me. Marco, we need to act. They won't wait for us to come to our senses. I took a steadying breath, trying to mask my own turmoil. We have to find out who's behind this and counter it before it starts to unravel everything. Yes, Marco said at last, resolve building in his chest, but caution flickered in his eyes. But if I'm to believe what you found, we're dealing with people who have no scruples. This isn't just a business rivalry. This is personal? I finished for him. Exactly, he replied, his voice lowering as if merely speaking the words could summon shadows lurking outside our window. I don't want to drag you into this darkness. Marco, I've been in darkness for as long as I can remember. I won't let you carry this burden alone, I asserted, feeling the weight of our intertwined fates solidifying with every decision. But just then, a familiar face appeared at the doorway. Eva, a fellow chef, eyes wide with concern. Guys, something's happened. You need to see this now. Panic sliced through me, but as Eva turned on her heel and hurried from the room, I exchanged a frantic glance with Marco. What now awaited us was unknown, but the rising panic in my chest told me it wouldn't be good. That we followed her quickly, stepping into the dimly lit dining area, where the atmosphere felt stifling. The whispers of the other chefs faded on our approach, and silence settled like a thick fog. In the center of the floor a figure stood, their back turned, silhouetted against the soft glow of the overhead lights. I could sense something sickeningly familiar about the stance, as if it were all ephemeral déjà vu lurking just beyond comprehension. With a slow turn, the figure revealed themselves, and the breath caught in my throat. This was the last person I ever expected to see here. And in that instant, as recognition crashed over me with the force of a tidal wave, I wondered if the allies we sought would turn out to be the very enemies we feared. Hello? I believe we have some unfinished business, the figure said, the smirk curling at the corners of their lips, a sinister invitation into a game that only just began. At that moment, everything morphed into a fractured glimpse of chaos that I couldn't ignore. The walls of our world were closing in, but hope, however faint, ignited within me. I didn't know how we would get through this, or who could be trusted, but I was ready to forge ahead into the depths of uncertainty. What awaited us now was a revelation that would shatter every illusion, and it was up to me to unravel this spiraling calamity before it consumed us whole. The tension in the room was palpable, thick as molasses, surrounding us in its suffocating embrace. I stared at the figure. Javier, an old friend turned rival, someone I thought I'd never have to confront again. The bitter taste of memories surged, muddling my thoughts further. His arrival was a catalyst, igniting hidden resentments and fears within the fragile trust Marco and I were attempting to build. Javier, Marco breathed, voice almost a whisper. Still playing chef, I see? Javier laughed, but there was no humor in it, only an edge that caused a shiver to run down my spine. Bet you thought you could slip away from this little game. But some cards have to be played when the stakes are high, and we're all in, my friends. Why are you here? I managed to ask, my heart pounding. I could feel Marco's mounting frustration next to me, a tempest of fury stirring just beneath his skin. Let's just say the tides have turned. Javier shrugged nonchalantly, but the glint in his eyes betrayed the rehearsed casualness. And I think it's time for a little family reunion or a reckoning. All these culinary events, the whispers of clandestine meetings, it's all so interconnected. And you two have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes. You've been behind this the whole time? Marco shot back, his fists clenching at his sides. The defiance in his voice hung in the air like storm clouds before thunder. You think this is a game? Lives are at risk, my dear chef, Javier replied, tilting his head theatrically. It's been a game since the very beginning. A game you've just become a part of. He cast a glance at me, one promising shared secrets and disdain, and I felt the urge to shrink back. We trusted you once, I could barely say, my voice wavering as jagged shards of betrayal buried inside me. I recalled the evenings we indulged in camaraderie, laughing over shared ambitions, the kitchen echoing with dreams we naively held. How could this be happening? Oh, trust is such a fragile thing, Javier mused, his tone languid and mocking. But you're not entirely alone in this. I have my eyes on an opening. An opening? Marco echoed, cautious curiosity creeping into his voice. What are you planning? Javier stepped closer, the room shrinking from the sheer intensity of his presence. I can help you if you're willing to rethink your allegiances. There are those who would rather see you fail than succeed, and I know how to expose them. But you'll have to play ball, darling chefs. I'll never trust you, Marco said, hatred bubbling on his tongue. You're a leech, nothing more. But as I looked at Javier, I couldn't shut out the flicker of hope igniting in my chest. What if he really knew something? What if there was a thread in this chaos worth pulling? Despite everything, a desperate curiosity urged me forward. There had to be some truth embedded in his riddles. Why would you help us now? I challenged, taking a step forward. You've spent years plotting against us. Motivations change, Javier replied smoothly, folding his arms across his chest. But you know, when a person's pushed too far, they'll either break down or rise up. I'm merely offering you a chance to rise. The silence that stretched between us was thunderous, filled with the weight of decisions that loomed ahead. Marco shot me a frantic look, a plea for understanding in his eyes. I knew what he was thinking. They could not do this, could not engage with the enemy in the darkness he had cast over the industry we loved. Yet, another loud crash shattered our reverie once more. A stack of glasses teetering on a nearby table fell, sending shards spiraling across the floor. Eva appeared again, her face pale, panic dancing in her eyes. Guys, it's happening. The restaurant is being shut down. I heard them talking. It's due to some allegations. There's no time. Allegations? Marco echoed, brow furrowing. The air swiftly filled with the sharp scent of urgency, pushing against our anxiety as reality pressed closer. Some report has been filed against you against the restaurant, Eva explained, voice taut with urgency. I didn't catch everything, but they're accusing you of unethical practices. It felt as if the ground had given way beneath me, the floor shuddering with the weight of so many fears colliding. I turned to Javier, anger simmering. Is this your idea of a game? To bring us down completely? Javier smirked, eyes gleaming with mischief. Oh, think of it as a little pressure to spur innovation. But don't you worry, you have a chance to turn it around. Just consider my proposal. Frustration swelled inside me, bickering against the moment of fleeting hope, clinging desperately to the edges of despair. Lives were collapsing, and yet I could feel the fire of battle crackling in the air. Marco was pacing, the tension thickening with his thoughts. Each step, a heartbeat echoing in tandem with my own. What do we do? His voice was strained, filled with helplessness. Suddenly, an idea struck me, ignited by Javier's taunts but now shifting before my eyes. What if we turn this upside down? I said, adrenaline surging through me. What if we use his knowledge against those who wish to see us fall? We could unearth their secrets while we search for the power behind the whispers. Both Marco and Eva stared at me with wide eyes, the shift in perspective grasping them firmly. Marco's jaw clenched, the resolve slowly replacing the doubt that haunted him. You think we can play them at their own game? Together, I affirmed, the determination mounting as I sought hope in our unity. We take control. We're not just chefs anymore, we are seekers of truth. As Javier raised a brow, intrigued, I felt the weight of our world shift, the pivoting wheel of fate gaining momentum against the chaos. But just as I thought we had a glimmer of hope, another familiar voice echoed through the restaurant entrance. Don't get too comfortable, the voice drawled, chilling my very core. It was Malcolm, the head of the Culinary Council, flanked by guards like shadows on the wall. This will be your last night, Marco. The knives have been drawn. It's over. In the seconds that followed, I realized the walls were not simply closing in. They were spinning with choices, igniting paths veiled in shadows. We were ensnared between enemies and allies, and how we navigated the maze ahead would define our lives forever. The air grew unbearably thick as I locked eyes with Marco. It was time to push toward the unknown, to unravel the twisted tapestry that threatened to choke us. The game was far from over. But if we were to survive, we had to confront every truth, every secret, and every betrayal that awaited. The sound of boots echoed through the restaurant, each step a hammer driving our anxiety deeper into the ground. Malcolm, resplendent in his tailored suit, marched forward, the guard's presence forming a barrier of intimidation. The confidence of someone wielding absolute power wrapped around him like a cloak as he surveyed the scene. "Doesn't it look quaint?" he said, his sneer cutting through the tension like a knife. "The dying breaths of your little dream, surrounded by whispers of betrayal and failure." "Get out of here, Malcolm." Marco's voice was low, full of fury yet somehow strained. Each word felt like a defiance against the oncoming storm. "You don't belong here. Oh, but I do," Malcolm continued, condescending. "This operation may be crumbling, but you're not off my radar yet. I have plenty left to expose." He paused, savoring the moment. "And the Culinary Council would be very interested in your little business practices." Javier leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, the flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. It was clear he was enjoying the chaos, sharpening his tools amidst our unraveling. Meanwhile, Eva stepped up beside us, her face resolute, as if she were somehow grounding the tumult around us. I could feel the collective breath in the room shifting, focused more on survival than on succumbing to fear. "Why do you care so much?" Eva probed, her gaze piercing. "What's driving you here? Surely you have more suitable battles to fight." Malcolm chuckled, a deep, low sound that reverberated through the tension. "Power, my dear," he corrected her, turning his eyes heavenward as if in supplication to some unseen force. "This city runs on power. You see, while you fritter away your nights cooking meals that are no longer appreciated, I'm busy orchestrating the fall of anyone who dares challenge me." "Challenging you?" Marco shot back, fists steadying against the kitchen counter. "We wouldn't be doing that if you hadn't crushed these dreams under your heel." As he spoke, I felt it, the pulse of rage rising through me, fueled by betrayal and history we had once shared with figures like Malcolm. Only now was it clear just how deep these undercurrents ran, how our culinary community, once vibrant, now lay fractured, entangled by jealousy and deceit. "You think you're untouchable," I interjected, finding the courage to step towards Malcolm, meeting his gaze steady. "But we're no longer just players in your game. We're redefining the rules." Malcolm held my stare, indulging in a moment of silence that stretched indefinitely, the weight of our animosity filling the air like a leaden fog. Then, unexpectedly, his facade of confidence slipped, a flicker of uncertainty flashing across his face. For just a second I saw the vulnerability beneath the bravado. "Bring it on then," he finally retorted, his tone hard once more. "You'll find the council much less forgiving than me." As he spoke, I caught sight of Javier, his expression shifting to one of morbid curiosity. What was happening? Was he relishing the conflict? Or was something deeper stirring beneath his cool veneer? He stepped forward, eyeing Malcolm thoughtfully. "You've made an enemy of the wrong chefs, Malcolm. Perhaps you've underestimated their ambition." Malcolm shot Javier a glare. "And maybe you're overstepping as usual, Javier. You're still a footnote in my story." With that, he waved a hand, signaling to his guards to move forward. The surge of adrenaline was quickened in my veins. It was now or never. "You don't own us, Malcolm," I declared with all the clarity I could muster, ignited by a fierce spark of defiance. "This is our restaurant. Your threats won't silence us." But as the guards advanced, I felt Marco's hand on my shoulder, heavy like an anchor. "Wait," he murmured. "Look." He pointed towards the back of the restaurant where a flicker of movement drew our attention. My heart plummeted at the sight. There against the wall stood Delia, the dishwasher, someone known for her quiet strength, who had often stayed out of the bitter rivalries unfolding around her. She held a phone, her face pale and determined. "Heard everything," she said, voice trembling but firm, "and I recorded it too. You're not alone. We've got your back." Malcolm's expression morphed into one of fury, but a slow grin crept across Javier's face. Now that's something I didn't see coming." As Delia stepped forward, it felt as though shards of hope were sprouting amongst the chaos, like flowers breaking through concrete. This was not just about us anymore. It was about everyone caught in the crossfire of ambition and greed. But just as this newfound resolve sank in, a sharp, shrill sound pierced the air, a ring of sirens echoing closer, drowning out everything else. The guards faltered for a moment, eyes darting toward the entrance, and Malcolm's smirk faltered. "What have you done?" he hissed at Delia. "We're fighting back," she shot back defiantly. "And you won't take us down without a fight." In that moment, the room became a battleground, both physical and symbolic, a clash of dreams, secrets, and revenge. I could feel the tide shifting. Yet, as the sirens screamed their approach, I realized the battle was just beginning. As uncertainty swirled around us like a tempest, I held tightly to hope, feeling its warmth flickering against the chill of despair, aware that everything could change in an instant. Our paths were no longer just woven with ambition but now tangled in unexpected alliances, and the sirens heralded not just trouble but the outcome of our combined efforts. But deep within me, a disquieting thought loomed. We might just be igniting a fire that would consume not only Malcolm but all of us caught in its blaze, and the final revelation of our fates was still buried in the ashes waiting to surface. The sirens wailed, drawing nearer, a cacophony of impending judgment that echoed through the strained silence of the restaurant. I could feel my heart racing as I stood shoulder to shoulder with Marco, Eva, and Delia, united in our newfound defiance. Each of us bore the weight of uncertainty, but beneath it, there lingered an ember of unity, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fight back against Malcolm's machinations. "Delia, are you sure about this?" Marco asked, his voice low yet steady, desperately seeking an anchor amid the storm. The dashboard flicker of her phone illuminated her face, casting shadows that danced across the resolve etched into her features. "Positive," she replied, the strength in her voice catching me off guard. "I've had enough of watching from the sidelines. We've put our hearts into this place, and I won't let him destroy it." From somewhere behind Malcolm, the guards shifted uncomfortably, eyes flitting toward each other in confusion. For a moment it was as if time had slowed, allowing anxiety to swell like an impending wave. I read the uncertainty in their posture. They were waiting for their leader's command, but the fiery confidence that had fueled Malcolm was flickering, revealing cracks in his armor. "How quaint," Malcolm hissed, his voice dripping with disdain. "One little recording won't change anything. You think you can rally others to your side?" He smirked, not quite believing that anyone could truly stand against him. "It's not just about the recording," Eva interjected, stepping forward, her resolve palpable. "People are tired of your games, Malcolm. There's a hunger for change, real change. We're not just chefs, we're a community." Suddenly, the door swung open, and in swept a gust of wind that felt like a herald of new beginnings. 3 patrons, faces flushed with concern, stepped inside, their expressions changing from shock to marred by disbelief upon seeing the tension that had enveloped the room. "What's going on?" one of them, an older woman, demanded, arms crossed defensively. "We heard the sirens and thought we should check. You should leave. It's not safe." I heard someone shout from the back of the restaurant as more familiar faces emerged, drawn to the commotion like moths to a flame. The arrival of our regulars stirred a restlessness in the atmosphere. Our small community, now finding its voice, pooling together against the looming threat. Malcolm's gaze whipped around the room, and something akin to panic crossed his features before he regained his composure. "You think your little group is strong enough? In this city?" he scoffed. "You have no idea the forces you're up against." "Yeah? And where are yours?" I shot back, emboldened by every face that had rallied to our cause. "What are they going to do when they see you fall?" A flicker of uncertainty flashed in his eyes once more, then vanished under a wave of malice. "You naive fools," he seethed, all elegance stripped from his tone, exposed in his desperation. "This will end badly for you. I've built this empire on the ruins of your broken dreams. Do you really believe that you can tear it down?" As tension surged again, a whisper spread among our growing circle of supporters. The walls around us were magnetized with our anger and hope. What had been a crumbling restaurant now thrummed with the heartbeat of an uprising. Suddenly, through the noise of sirens and tension, a soft yet resolute voice cut through. What if we didn't just stand and fight for ourselves, but for everyone who's been crushed by someone like you? It was Delia, and though her eyes were filled with an undeniable fear, there was a strength that radiated from her. Suddenly, her words washed over us like a cool balm. A collective hush deepened as more patrons stepped inside, the kitchen crew joining, bonding together in this unscripted moment. This wasn't merely about saving a restaurant, it was about reclaiming dignity, about standing up for what was right in a world that had allowed bullies to thrive too long unchecked. More voices joined in, mutters of agreement, whispers of support, and murmurs of shared struggles. The power of the people united was choking the air with anticipation. Malcolm's eyes darted between the faces forming a resolute wall against him, and the tension sparked as they began to rally, turning toward their own truths cloaked in courage. But just as I began to feel a sense of control, the atmosphere shifted abruptly. The door burst open again, and this time 2 police officers strode in, eyes scanning the scene, their presence stark and official amid the whirlwind of chaos. "Is everything all right here?" one officer called, eyeing Malcolm and the guards, who were suddenly far more uncertain than before. "Nothing to see here, officer." Malcolm's voice dripped with that familiar arrogance, but I could see him tightening his grip on the edges of his suit coat, betraying his internal conflict. "Sir, it looks like there's been a disturbance. We received multiple calls about a possible threat." The glimmer of hope surged within me, battling against the storm that Malcolm still stirred. Perhaps we could use this moment to further our cause, show how much we had been driven apart, how the divide of our community had given way for people like him to flourish at our expense. But as I opened my mouth to speak, hoping to redirect the narrative, Malcolm's gaze met mine once more, glinting with an unsettling darkness. "Oh, this will end well for me, believe me," he stated ominously, with a chilling smile that spread across his lips. "And when it does, history will remember who the real chefs are." Then, with a flick of his wrist, he barked an order to his guards. The clatter of boots rang out in counterpoint to the tremors of solidarity swelling in the room. At that moment, I felt an icy tendril of dread wrapping around my heart, a realization that we might be teetering on the edge of a calamity we were not yet ready to face. The sirens grew louder, a mighty herald of crusades, but with that sound came a haunting question that loomed over us all. Would we stand united, ready to face whatever darkness Malcolm wielded? Or would we succumb to the very fear he thrived on? The battle had only just begun, and defeat was looming with every step closer to the threshold of uncertainty. In the midst of the chaos, as the officers surveyed the room, I felt that familiar twinge of apprehension twisting in my gut. The confrontation of Malcolm and his guards, the rising tensions, the palpable hope of our gathered community, everything seemed to be spiraling toward an uncertain precipice. "All right, folks, I need to know what's happening," one of the officers insisted, stepping forward with authority. His partner lingered by the door, eyes scanning the crowd for signs of discontent. "Sir, I know this looks unconventional," I began, taking a deep breath, hoping my voice would carry the conviction I felt in my chest. "This man has been exploiting us. There's no need for any of this dramatics," Malcolm interrupted, an infuriating calmness radiating from him, despite the uncertainty erupting around him. "These people are merely unhappy with their meal. Isn't that right?" A few patrons snickered at his audacity, but before any of us could respond, 2 loyal customers stepped forward, their faces set with determination. They began to recount tales of how they had been mistreated, how Malcolm would dismiss their complaints, laugh off their grievances like they were trifles. Their voices wove together, strong and resolute, crafting a narrative that bolstered the courage of those who were formerly silent. The officers exchanged glances, clearly torn. "Let's try to keep the situation civil, all right? No need for exaggeration or hostility," one officer said, infused with a trace of uncertainty, wrestling against the weight of our united front. Delia, emboldened by the moment, stepped forward again. "It is about more than just this restaurant, officer," she said, her voice steady. "We're fighting for our dignity here. Malcolm and his kind have been suffocating the community for far too long. We have to stand up against them." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. I feared they would side with Malcolm, After all, he held power in this city, the connections, the resources, the impressive wealth, all concentrated in hands that clutched the throats of those of us on the fringes. But just then, from the back, our dishwasher Enrique, a quiet man with eyes that had seen too much, stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly, but there was fire in his gaze. "I've seen what happens when people like him take charge," he said, his accent thick yet clear, his voice carrying an undeniable weight. "My family lost everything when his kind came to take. It's why I fought to work here, why I refused to be silent now that I in that moment everything shifted." People turned to look at Enrique, astonishment etching across their faces. Malcolm's facade slipped, revealing a glimpse of what lay beneath his cultivated charm, a flicker of concern, maybe fear. The room surged with energy, every individual's heart beating as one. "Do you think you can silence us?" I shouted to Malcolm, the fervor of our bonded stories lighting up my words. "It's wrong what you've done, and we won't take it anymore." The sirens wailed on in the distance, beckoning an end to this unfolding drama, but we stood firm, our fears a mere whisper against the roar of our unified voice. "Please, officer," I called to one of the police. "You have to understand, this isn't just about a confrontation. We can't allow this man to continue his oppression. Protect us. We're just trying to make things right." But Malcolm's laughter sliced through the air, sharp and malevolent. "You really think they'll choose you over all I can offer? You're just a blip on the radar, insignificant." And yet, as he spoke, I saw the resolve clawing back against his arrogance. More of our community began to stand with us, rallying around, mingling our voices, and I could feel the swell of purpose growing within me. It was a realization. Together we were no longer insignificant. Suddenly, a more aggressive tone surged from the officers. "Enough!" the second officer barked, stepping forward to Malcolm. "Let's get some facts straight here. This doesn't look good for you, and we don't take kindly to threats." Malcolm's veneer cracked further, and I pressed my lips into a thin line, holding my breath. Would our defiance hold up against his calculated treachery, or would he weave his web even tighter to ensnare our breath? Then, before we could process any further, a figure stepped into view, silhouetted by the warm lights of the restaurant, a true dark horse amidst the roiling tension. It was a local journalist whom we had welcomed, known for exposing the corrupt dealings of powerful individuals. Her eyes narrowed when she saw the scene unfold, and she pulled out her camera, snapping photos rapidly, her presence a spellbinding catalyst on the trajectory of our lives. "Let me capture this," she called out, voice a clarion call in the chaos, invigorating the air thick with our centering panic. "Because everyone needs to see how this fight unfolds." At that moment, as the tension intensified like a coil ready to spring, I realized we were no longer at the mercy of history. We were crafting it ourselves. Yet, in the back of my mind lurked that heavy dread: had we just ignited something we weren't prepared for, opening a Pandora's box of consequences that might leave irreversible scars on our community, regardless of the outcome? Only time would tell as the sirens faded into a haunting echo, unwinding our resolve into the sprawling night that loomed with endless possibilities. I felt the collective breath of our community, a palpable wave of hope and fear intertwining with each moment that slipped by. As the journalist captured the unfolding spectacle, the atmosphere thickened with the urgency of a slow-motion revelation. Malcolm, who had always been so certain in his authority, stood there, his perfectly polished mask beginning to reveal fractures beneath its surface. The moments dragged, and in the charged air, I suddenly felt enveloped in uncertainty. What if the story twisted in ways we could not foresee? What if this courageous stand turned out to be our undoing? Yet, looking at the faces of those who had gathered, familiar companions drawn together by pain, hope, and a shared determination, I clenched my fists. I couldn't let despair creep in now. We were finally standing for something greater than ourselves. "Get her out of here!" Malcolm roared, pointing a trembling finger at the journalist, a flicker of panic flaring in his eyes. An ugly chill rippled through the assembling crowd. I could hardly breathe as his sudden rage turned palpable. What would he do next, resorting to further threats now that the spotlight was on us? "Just a second," the officer closest to Malcolm countered, stepping toward him with caution. "We need to investigate further before sweeping anyone away." "Are you really siding with them?" Malcolm's voice dripped disdain as he glanced around at the patrons, his indignation unfurling like a dark cloak around him. "You have no idea what you're getting into here." Maybe none of us do, the second officer replied, lifting his chin defiantly. But we know abuse when we see it, and this? He gestured broadly at the discontented community surrounding us. This is not just about a failed dinner service. I felt a surge of hope battling the lingering dread. There was a possibility, however faint, that justice might lurk beyond the chaos. Before I could rejoice in the wave of camaraderie, an elderly woman, Mrs. Gomez, whom I had known since I was a child, stepped forward. "Malcolm," she began, her voice quivering at first but gaining strength, "you took my family's livelihood and then turned your back on us. I won't let you pull down our home any longer." The crowd stirred, encouraged by her brave heart, and I found myself rushing alongside her, emboldened by her words mingling with mine. "Stand together. We cannot let fear suffocate us any longer." I spoke into the tempest, clinging to each echo of our shared narrative that drifted through the air. Then, as if commanded by fate, a low rumble made its way through the room, stomping, rhythmic, raw passion swelling from the depths of our hearts, a pulse of unity that overtook uncertainty. More voices joined, rising in a chant that filled the restaurant. No more silence. No more fear. We are here to reclaim what's dear. I could hardly believe the sound wrapping around me, a tapestry crafted from threads of defiance and hope. We were standing together for some unseen future. Yet something dark glimmered in Malcolm's eyes. I could see the way they glistened with fury tempered by fear, and just as I thought he might lash out, he let out a chilling laugh that sliced through our chant. "You think this is enough to bring me down? You're just meddling in a game that you don't understand," he sneered, his bravado now desperate, revealing his unraveling. "And I promise you, if you cross me, you'll regret it." I felt cold terror ripple through my veins. What had we awakened by drawing his ire? What further darkness would he unleash if he felt cornered? Even as my mind raced with questions, a spark of unexpected kindness cut through the tension. Two staff members from the back of the restaurant stepped forward, their faces resolute. "We're with you," one announced, his tone filled with conviction. An older woman who worked as a baker took his hand in support, tightening the unbreakable bond. "Don't let fear dictate your fight." Just then the oppressive air shifted slightly, a fresh breeze coaxing away the weight. Our secret weapon had arrived in the form of unity and indomitable spirit. Yet no sooner had we dared to hope than a crash erupted from the kitchen. It came from behind the doors, a cacophony of clattering pots and pans, a wild disarray that silenced our chant. We froze, dread flooding back as the doubt clawed at our resolve. What was that? Someone whispered, the sense of unity fracturing. I turned, my heart racing as the doors swung wide open. In that fleeting moment, I caught sight of something unsettling, a figure cloaked in shadows darting past the chaos, their hurried breath echoing through the room like a heartbeat signaling danger. Whispers erupted from the crowd. Malcolm's anger loomed large, and the officers scrambled to assess the situation, but their authority felt flimsy against the tempest brewing before us. The world spun as I searched for answers. Rage still vibrated through the air, but the unexpected tension cloaked a darker truth beneath it, all of us standing unsuspecting on the precipice of something monumental. What had we truly unleashed? And in that delicate balance I heard a faint sound, the faint cry of someone in pain, crawling through the cracks of our communal battle. Would we dive deep to unearth the heart of the darkness hiding within our fight? The answer loomed ahead, and my heart dropped as I realized that whatever next emerged from the chaos, none of us were prepared for what lay in wait. The sound of metal clanging against tile echoed ominously, a stark contrast to the fervent chant that had united us mere moments before. The crowd shifted uneasily, glancing around as though contemplating whether to retreat or surge forward into the unknown that the crash had heralded. I strained to peer through the growing darkness that shrouded the kitchen entrance. The tension electrified the air. Something lay hidden within that chaos that felt undeniably dangerous. Heart racing, I caught Mrs. Gomez's worried gaze, and her quiet nod bolstered my determination to stand my ground. "Wait," I urged, raising my voice above the murmurs of uncertainty that had begun to swirl. "We can't let fear push us apart now." My words rang in the air, but their power was waning as dread began to creep into our hearts. The lingering taste of bravery on my tongue felt bittersweet. How much longer could we maintain our resolve? Just then, the kitchen doors burst open, and to my stunned disbelief, two terrified figures stumbled out. A pair of young men dressed in staff aprons, clothes stained with flour and remnants of yesterday's dishes. Their eyes darted toward us, wild with panic. Help! He's gone crazy! One shouted, his voice breaking, sending a ripple of apprehension through the crowd. Who's gone crazy? What's happening? Someone called out from the back, frustration creeping through the lines in their brow. It's Malcolm. He's locked the dishwashers in the back, and threw almost everything. I think he wants to keep something hidden. The other staff member's voice cracked, hinting at the deeper struggle stirring within the kitchen walls. The colors of our faces drained as the weight of his words settled into the pit of my stomach. Hidden? What was he hiding? My thoughts spiraled into ominous conclusions, but I forced myself to focus on the task at hand. Failure wasn't an option now. Not when so many had finally gathered the courage to stand up with me. A hushed murmuring spread as I glimpsed Malcolm's silhouette by the sinks, a dark figure cloaked in a cloud of chaos. With a determined step, I moved towards the disaster unfolding before us. A fierce impulse driving my every motion. Malcolm, what are you hiding in there? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The cacophony quieted slightly around me, and I sensed the crowd's collective breath held in suspense. The moment I uttered his name, Malcolm whirled around, eyes wild with panic. He was sweating, his hands shaking at his sides. You think you have any idea what you're playing with? He spat, but even his words seemed hollow, tinged with fear rather than the assured bravado he usually wielded. Then show us. I urged, heart pounding. There was power in voice and in numbers. We were fueled with something primal that propelled us forward. What are you afraid of? The crowd shifted restlessly behind me, but I held my own ground, the raw energy of our collective determination urging us forward step by step. Malcolm's expression contorted at my challenge, and for a brief moment, it seemed that he might crack a chink in the armor that had shielded him for so long enough. He bellowed, clutching a bottle of what appeared to be cleaning solution from the sink. You think you can disrupt the status quo and get away with it? You're playing with fire. Before I could react, he hurled the bottle toward the gathering, a heavy arc through the air that sent my heart into my throat. Malcolm! No! I cried out, but the bottle shattered against the floor, spraying its contents across the tiles in a rain of glimmering liquid that hissed and bubbled ominously. A chorus of gasps echoed through the crowd. Eyes widened and dread danced among us, a chilling reminder of the extremes we were witnessing. The connection we had formed seemed to falter, fraying against the explosion of madness that Malcolm had unleashed. Run! Get out! Shouted one of the boys, eyes brimming with desperation as they pushed toward the doorway. He's gone insane! The air thickened with tension and fear, but as chaos threatened to swallow us whole and unexpected, voice cut through the maelstrom. A young woman, someone I had never seen before, pushed through the throng and raised her hands as if to summon calm. We're not afraid of you, Malcolm. We stand together. The way she spoke with conviction and courage instigated a stirring within me. Perhaps we had faced so much already. Perhaps this was our moment to defy the tempest that sought to scatter us apart. Malcolm's rage flared again, and for a moment, I feared we had awakened a beast that could not be contained. Yet, behind him, a vision flickered in the haze of spilled detergent, a door creaking open further down the kitchen corridor. A visitor emerging from the shadows. Was someone else coming to confront the nightmare? Friends? Allies? Or something far worse than we could have ever imagined? I held my breath at the sight of figures stepping out, clad in gray from head to toe. The steady gaze met mine, and with the suffocating weight of uncertainty circling around us, it struck me like lightning. The dishwasher, my mother's stories, our collective fight all folded into this new revelation. I barely had time to collect my thoughts as that figure brushed the kitchen door wider, stepping into the light. And then I caught the glint of something shiny in the figure's hand, a small blade, poised as if it held the power to turn the tides of the urgency rippling through the room. Who are you? I shouted, the world narrowing to that one uncertain question as the figure came closer, their expression unreadable against the backdrop of chaos that unfolded behind them. And for a heartbeat, the weight of choice and consequence loomed large over us all, and I suddenly knew that whatever secret lay behind the kitchen's walls could change everything. My heart raced as the figure emerged, the gleaming blade reflecting the stark overhead lights. The tension in the room escalated, time stretching out like a thin, fraying wire ready to snap at the slightest touch. I felt the breath of the gathered crowd behind me, the weight of their collective fear coiling tight in the pit of my stomach. Who was this person, and what role would they play in this spiraling chaos? Stay back! Malcolm shouted, eyes darting towards the newcomer with a mix of defiance and dread. But the figure stood unwavering, their eyes cutting through the tension, searching for something beneath the surface. Malcolm, they said, voice steady, unwavering. This ends now. I watched as Malcolm's bravado wavered, the armor he had worn for so long beginning to crack. You don't know what you're doing, he faltered, glancing between the newcomer and the crowd that seemed to close in around him. You don't understand the game. And then, as if the world paused for a split second, the figure stepped into the light fully. It was a woman, her expression fierce yet calm. Actually, I do, she replied, her tone relentless. This is about more than just you. This is a fight for all of us who have been silenced by your threats and your control. Intrigued whispers rippled through the gathered onlookers, the atmosphere shifting subtly as murmurs of hope began to blossom within the fear that had overtaken us. My heart lifted slightly with her words, igniting a flicker of courage that had threatened to dull under the weight of despair. Who are you? I breathed, stepping forward to help dispel some of the tension looming in the air. I recognized the urgency of her presence was disruptive, like a fresh wind against the suffocating storm. I'm Anna, she said, and I could see the strength radiating from her as she gestured toward Malcolm, her poise making him look even more desperate. And I've come to put an end to the tyranny you've imposed on this community. The anger and pride burned in Malcolm's eyes, but beneath it flickered something darker, fear. You think you have the power to change anything? He sneered, but the crack in his voice caught my attention. This restaurant, this city, everything is in my grasp. You are nothing. But we are not nothing, Marco shouted from beside me, already emboldened by Anna's unwavering presence. You have tried to crush us for too long. You think your money and influence can silence our voices? No more. As the weight of our collective defiance pressed against Malcolm's imposing figure, I felt unshakable determination radiate from each soul present. Anna held the knife not merely as a weapon, but as a symbol of the strength we had uncovered within ourselves, an embodiment of the unity that had blossomed in the face of adversity. He screamed, a petulant child caught throwing a tantrum, yet in that moment I saw the unraveling of his confidence before our very eyes. You think this is a game? He shouted, rage intertwining with desperation. You'll regret challenging me. Not if we stand united, Anna replied, her resolve sending powerful ripples across the crowd. You've built your empire on the ruins of dreams crushed beneath your heel, and today we will rise up to reclaim what's ours. An electrifying silence hung. Then shouts of agreement emerged from the sea of faces. Together. Rise up. Each voice entwined with the other, a chorus of longing for change that cascaded through the air like a life-giving force. With chaos bubbling behind me, I dared to take a step closer, emboldened by the tide of voices behind me. You may try to intimidate, Malcolm, but we will no longer be your pawns. You think we're weak, torn apart by fear, but your threats only strengthen our resolve. For a moment, I almost believed we had the potential to turn this tide in our favor. But Malcolm, sensing the shift in his control, moved swiftly. If you think standing against me is all it takes, but his retort was cut short as the police officers approached, their expressions set in determination. We're going to need a statement from you, sir, one of them called, stepping forward to place a hand on Malcolm's shoulder as if to ground him to reality. Let's hear exactly what's been going on here. For an instant, the momentum swung, Malcolm's fury clashing against the unwavering support of everyone gathered. We could see that his defenses were crumbling, unraveling like a thread pulled just the right way. I felt the pulse of hope rekindle within me. Perhaps this battle would not be in vain. Enough, Malcolm shouted, pushing past the officers trying to reclaim his space. You think this is about power? This is about control. But from the corner of my eye, I caught the glint of something in Anna's stance, a profound sense of purpose. Control can only persist through fear, Malcolm. But we've chosen to reclaim our voices. Your reign ends today, and in that moment, the ground beneath us seemed to shift. Malcolm's mask began to slip, revealing a precipice that introduced us to fear, a fear that leached from him like poison, casting a dark shadow over everything he had built. Then it happened, the moment of clarity. The air electrified as someone from the back shouted, "He's lying. We're done with his lies." It was one of the older patrons, a woman who had frequently sat at the counter with stories that echoed through the restaurant. Hope surged within me, the truth of our existence overshadowing all we had suffered as we took a collective step forward. Malcolm's face twisted in anger. "You're making a grave mistake," he bellowed, but even as he shouted, there was an unmistakable tremor in his voice, a realization that perhaps he was no longer in control. "Maybe it's time for you to realize that the community you've tried to crush together is rising stronger, more formidable than your empty threats," I shouted, feeling emboldened by the unexpected tide of courage surrounding me. And just as those words flowed from my lips, I felt a surging confirmation resonate in the room. Our battle, our voices, our truth, they were intertwined like tendrils of flame fighting against the oppressive darkness. As our chant reignited, I caught sight of a police officer stepping forward, holding not just authority, but also the chance for us to reclaim our narratives. "We're here to protect the rights of these citizens," he said firmly, turning toward Malcolm with steely resolve. "You're going to have to explain this." I could hardly breathe, the possibilities flickering in my mind. Had we done it? Had we pushed Malcolm to this point of reckoning? As Malcolm's expression twisted from rage to an almost comical disbelief, the collective hopes of our gathered community surged into the void created by his unraveling facade. "Enough, Malcolm," another officer chimed in, head bowed with authority. "Your reign ends here, and you will answer for your actions." With mounting assurance, we pressed forward, a unified front against the shadows cast by a tyrant, the truth lending us strength, illuminating the cracks in his hold. The moment lingered before us, a heedless promise of rebirth, a community reclaiming its voice from the depths of despair. And as Malcolm recoiled, lost amidst the encroaching wave of our defiance, it hit me. We had become a force of hope, forged through collective pain but now unyielding in purpose, creating a narrative bigger than ourselves, a narrative that throbbed with the potential to reshape everything we believed possible. In those final moments, a pulse of conviction surged through me, weight of uncertainty lifting. Out of shadows had come light, the promise of reclaiming our lives and our names. It was not the end, merely a beginning. As I locked eyes with each member of our community, I knew one truth above all else. Standing together, we held the power to write our own story, and as Malcolm's dark silhouette shrank against the radiance of our united light, I understood something profound. The dishwashers and diners, the journeys and dreams, we were all woven together within this tapestry we had fought to protect. Together we were mighty. And with those words echoing in the depths of my soul, I felt a rush of unshakable hope surge. Forth this time we would rise. Today we stand strong, and tomorrow we will be even stronger.